I am Cole. I play Thomas.
I'm Corey. I play Ben.
And I'm Tommy Dorfman. I'm the writer and director of I Wish You All the Best, a coming of age film about a non binary kid who, after getting kicked out of their parents' home, is taken in by their siblings and learns to love themselves and the world. I started as an actor. I went to theater school, and while there, I was sort of dipping my toe into directing, if you will. I actually directed The Sound of Music in high school, so I would say that was really my debut. And then I don't know, I was working as an actor, and I was feeling unfulfilled, and I felt like there was a wellspring of stories that needed to be told. And this book was originally sent to me kind of under the guise of acting potentially, but I felt too old, frankly. Like I was graduating out of a teen soap opera and I was in my mid 20s, and it felt like a perfect first film for me to make as an adaptation. And I always have loved adaptations. I love how people use different mediums of art. So for me, I knew after reading the book I had to tell this story. It was just really clear. It was visceral. I could see it in front of me. I also could just feel it as a Southern person who grew up in as a trans kid in the South, and like what that experience would entail. And in many ways, I got to kind of relive a version of maybe what high school could have been through Ben. So it was quite healing in the same way that I think the movie is healing. But yeah, on a technical level, I was just really excited to work with actors and department heads. And I used to spend all my time on set in Video Village, and I would stay way later than I was supposed to. And finally, I was like, you know what? I think I'm supposed to be here right now. And so after many, many, many years, I finally got to do it.
I as soon as I got the audition for this, I was like, I would love to be a part of this. It felt like a like putting on a glove that just fit really well Tommy's words and um giving giving life to Ben was like yeah, I felt like I learned so much about myself and I didn't expect that and it's kind of I think set me up for um I don't want to say disappointment in my future projects, but just like learning so much and just really feeling transformed by the part and by the people that I got to do it with. So, yeah.
Um, Tommy and I had talked about working together for a while, and then we talked about this script. And I think the thing that excited me the most was um, one, playing like a super solid, um, like straight figure in Ben's life, which I thought was like a nice mark of allegiance for the character. I thought was really reassuring, but also to play a young father was cool. I'm 31. I'm not thinking of kids right now, but it's just nice. It felt like a bit of a graduation from the same kind of content that Tommy and I were doing on different shows. But it was, yeah, it all kind of fell into place perfectly, and I felt very comfortable with Tommy. We had been friends for years, and so I knew I was going to be in the right hands.
Can you talk a bit more about that transition of, playing the teens in these coming of age stories to now transitioning to being like the parental type of figure in them?
Well, I've only done one, so I would say the most truly even more surreal, the most surreal part of it, and I had mentioned this as a story earlier, was, you know, the baby that we were working with was the same age I was when I started, which was a kind of full circle, very strange moment. Um, yeah, I mean, I think every project is different, and every character you approach is different, and depending on how comfortable you feel to play around with the other departments, I think is what determines the kind of the kind of freedom you're gonna have. But it definitely feels good to not have to worry about playing a teenager who does homework anymore.
Or is like saving their town from like eternal destruction. I
Yes,
mean, it's not.
waterboarding someone with maple
Yeah,
syrup. Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very different world we're living in Raleigh, North Carolina than Riverdale.
yeah, totally, totally.
I love teen movies. I love coming of age stories, even if they're not necessarily skewed to a certain generation or demographic. I think I personally love coming of age films that can reach wider ranges of audiences that aren't like so soapy or so specific in that way. And for me, I grew up just I grew up with like 10 Things I Hate About You and like John Hughes films and like all these like special things in the 90s and early 2000s. And I felt like we were missing that. And I was missing that. And so I thought, okay, let me try my hand at, bringing a coming of age story to life. And frankly, like as a queer kid, like never once saw myself represented, maybe as like a shadow of a character or just like a really simple two-line trope. And so I felt like I could take a familiar structure and infuse it with characters that we hadn't seen before and worlds that we hadn't seen before. And that was a really clear mission for me. And frankly, as a first-time filmmaker, I wanted to ease into it with something that I felt really confident about. And I Wish You All the Best. And Ben's story was so clear to me. I knew I could do it. I knew I could bring it to life. And yeah, that's sort of where it all began. I have to hand it to Mason, who wrote the novel I Wish You All the Best, because they really gave me free will. They said, do what you want. And I had the great benefit of optioning it myself. I took that gamble, which meant I got to write the script on my own. I didn't have development execs like breathing down my neck while I was writing it, telling me what I could do or couldn't do. So it was really liberating. I really wanted that experience for my first film. And I was really clear with Mason when we were first talking as well. I was like, I think there's a lot that will need to change. The book is incredibly intimate and which the film is as well. But there's a lot of inner monologuing and dialoguing that obviously, you could have a lot of voiceover in a movie. I don't particularly love that device. So I wanted to work outside of that realm, perhaps because I was on a teen show that was heavily reliant on voiceover. So I felt like I needed to take a stab at making a movie adaptation of a coming of age story that didn't rely on that particular device. And so I took those liberties. I mean, I found in the writing process and then in the filming and then in the editing process, there were just certain characters that really work in the book, for example, that didn't necessarily make sense in my cinematic universe. Or, there's a therapist in the book and an art teacher, and they both serve a similar purpose. And I thought for the movie adaptation, I think it would be a lot more linear and clear to have that as one person guiding Ben instead of all of these different voices. And then those are some tough decisions, right, that you have to make. But I ultimately feel that these are two very different mediums and you're experiencing them so differently. If you're reading a book at home versus sitting in a movie theater or watching a movie with your friends and family, um, I really just, I feel so grateful that I got to take those liberties and make space and really hone in on Ben and what it means to be a teenager and what it means to step into yourself and fall in love and have heartbreak and um, learn how to be kind of an adult. I think there's obviously this core base. The book was incredibly successful for the type of book that it is. And certainly there will be varied opinions about how the film differs from the source material, but I think it's not Harry Potter. Like there's a little bit more leniency there. I think it is quite grounded, quite intimate, and I felt like the goal with this movie in particular is one, it could be a movie that queer kids who aren't even out or don't even know about this part of themselves yet could watch in the safety of their bedroom alone if they wanted to and learn something about themselves at some point. Or it could be a film that like parents like Ben's parents might see and come into it and learn something about themselves as well. And I think for me it's a matter of reaching the widest audience possible with stories like this. So often we are regulated to kind of like the LGBTQ tabs of streamers or really small markets. And I feel really grateful that, Corey and my ensemble cast have really broad audiences that can come into this movie. Like people who grew up with Cole might come into this movie and have an entirely different experience. Same with Lena or Corey or Alex or yeah, anyone else in this film, right? And think that they're coming in for one thing and get something else entirely different. And I really strived to make it a film about love in a lot of ways and like different forms and expressions of love, which to me feels quite universal. But of course, I hope it reaches, kids like myself who need a movie like this, families who need to understand what showing up and showing love is, and also anyone who's feeling like lonely and confused in their life, regardless of your identities, um, to see that there are avenues to freedom, and there are avenues to success, and avenues to feeling affirmed within yourself.
This is definitely for the queer kids who need a hug. But I think also um, it is so universal in that, like, we all need safe people. We all need people that we can let our walls down with. And I don't know that I don't think Ben would have gotten through this without Hannah, without Thomas, without without all of their friends and their teachers. So I think it speaks to an importance of finding those safe people and being aware of who feels safe in your life and who you feel like you can be that way with, and also just hopefully being that space for someone else.
Yeah, I to echo that, I think families would be an awesome demographic to really hit. Um, like you said, I think it's a big conversation about safety and like feeling safe in your space and feeling heard. And I think like families, need that conversation, especially because so many of the themes of this movie, even outside the identity conversation, are about, the teenage rites of passage that is a very universal human experience that I would love, to have all kinds of families just sit and discuss. So I would say family dynamics would be awesome.
Yeah.